Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Wait a minute. I'm getting a bit of deja vu. Welcome to Ficus Friday. The reason I got deja vu is that I worked on these exact same 3 trees 1 year, 2 months, and about 3 days ago. So I'm getting deja vu working on the same 3 trees once again. Let's go back in time and I'll show you what the trees looked like just over a year ago. Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. This will be my last video of 2021. The new year is coming in tonight, so Happy New Year everyone. Today is fabulous fiddle-leaf Ficus Friday. I'll be working on my fiddle-leaf fig. I'll also be working on my new tree, my Ficus benghalensis. I just got this year and it's beginning to grow already. And I'll be working on a new Ficus elastica that I got this year as well. The 3 trees I'll be working on today is my Ficus lyrata, or my fiddle-leaf fig, my Ficus benghalensis, or Indian banyan tree, and my Ficus elastica, or Indian rubber tree. I was keeping my Ficus lyrata down in the basement, cool over the winter, and I noticed the leaves were starting to turn kind of mottled or brownish looking, and I thought, okay, it doesn't like the cool temperature in the basement. So I brought it up to the plant room where it proceeded to defoliate. All the leaves went brown and fell off, and I thought, oh my goodness, did I just kill the tree? So I scratched the bark. It was still green underneath, so I thought, okay, it's just recovering from that cold period. And here it is today. It's just bursting with all kinds of buds on it, looking healthy. The leaves are coming out, so I'm quite happy with it. This tree has changed a little bit from a year and 2 months ago. I cut the leader off, leaving a stump. A new branch grew up, and then I cut the trunk flush, so kind of blending in the new leader. So it's changed a little bit from a year ago. A year ago, my Ficus benghalensis was just a smaller tree in a nursery pot that was very, very small. And the tree was very small too. There was no bark on the trunk. It was green. It was almost, well, not quite the same height, but it was skinny. It hadn't been touched, so it has grown a lot since then. I pruned the apex off the tree, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 new branches in the apex here. My intent was to develop this into a large tree because it naturally has large leaves. But you can see already the leaves are reducing. They've gone from these giant leaves here to something that's a little more reasonable. And with more branching, they'll reduce even further. They call this tree the banyan tree because it does generate aerial roots really easily. You can see the roots that have escaped out the bottom of the pot over the winter. And they grow along the bench, and then they find another pot, and then the roots grow up into the other pot through the drainage holes. They're always looking for moisture, and they seem to find it all the time. I had this on the bench in the greenhouse last summer, and the roots grew from the bench and right down to the gravel floor down here, and they grew into the gravel. So very aggressive root systems on these trees. And you can see how much the trunk has developed. It's got bark on it now. It's thickened up. It's probably, I would say, tripled in size in the 1 year. So it'll be a very interesting tree to develop into the future. The last tree here is my Indian rubber tree, or my Ficus elastica. A year ago, this was in a nursery pot. I just purchased it from Canadian Tire, like a department store, a big box store. And I root pruned it and arranged the 3 trees into this pot. So you can see the 3 trees. I think this was the front. And I cut them off, defoliated them, I think almost completely, at least these 2. And today it needs some more pruning. My intent with these is to keep them very small trees and try and get the leaf size down. So you can see the first leaves that emerged were very small, kind of the size of well, quite small actually. And then as it gains vigor, the leaves get bigger and bigger. but they're still nowhere near, you know, what a tree growing in a big pot would have. They're quite miniaturized. Like, I would say these leaves are at least a quarter to what a house plant would have. So they are reducing quite nicely. It's Ficus Friday today, so I'm going to begin work on my 3 ficus, starting with my Ficus lyrata or fiddle-leaf fig. Before I get working on the ficus, I want to mention that I'm on a storm watch today. There is a snowstorm heading this way. It should reach here in about an hour or 2, where we're supposed to get 15 to 20 centimeters of snow or 3 to 4 inches of snow and high winds and blowing. So it'll be interesting to see if the storm develops as the video goes on. You can see that the new shoots are emerging on this tree. There's a branch here that looks like it's died off and a new branch is emerging at the base of it. I'm not sure why this branch has died off, but it did. It's possible it is still alive. We could scratch it and see if there's any green there. If this branch is alive, then I'd probably rub off this bud down here. If this branch is dead, then this new shoot will replace it. So let's check that branch to see if there's any signs of life in it. I'll rotate the tree. I want to scratch the back side of the branch so you don't see the scar. So let's go around here to here. And I'll get out a pair of scissors and I'll just scratch the bark and see if it's green underneath. All right, here I go. So let's see. And it is. See that? It's very green underneath. So I think there's a good chance that this branch will grow. Now I can clean up the stub there. You can see my previous pruning stub on the top of this branch, so I will come in. I'll try and come in. Maybe I'll do a rough cut first and then I'll have to get my nibblers, come in and clean that up a bit. Like that. Okay, that's a nice cut. And I can see there's sap bleeding here. There's a look at that sap. You can see the white latex sap there. So that branch is very much alive. You will notice on this tree that there's a lot of buds coming off the main trunk here. And I have this bottom branch is fully leafed out already. Ideally what I want is all the buds kind of to develop at the same time. So on this branch that's developed already, I want to partially defoliate it to kind of equalize the balance of vigor in the tree, so this branch doesn't take all the energy from the roots and make the apex weaker and this branch stronger. So I kind of want to balance the vigor on this Ficus elastica. So I'm going to take off the largest leaves here. So I'm coming in here, and now I have to make sure I see where it is, right here. Like that. I'll just rough prune it first. There's Spider-Man hanging there. Okay, so that's taken some of the vigor out of this. And it looks like this branch back here is in the same position as this branch that a bud developed at the base of it here instead of developing the other branch. So let's just rotate this around and look at the back of this tree. So back here. So the same thing, here's a branch, an older branch that hasn't come into leaf. There is a bud right here on it, but nothing up top. So again, I'm going to do the scratch test. So this upper part doesn't look like it's alive on here. It looks like it's died off. And I can confirm that by snipping the top off. Yeah, there's no sap flow, it's just dead wood. So probably this bud right here is the lowest living part to that branch. So I'll prune off, I'm going to prune off the top of this branch to here. Still no sap flow, it's dead. Now we're starting to get into a bit of fleshy part here. So I'm definitely going to stop there, let this bud develop. Again, I have a stump here that I can remove from last time I pruned the tree, so right here. clean it up a bit, like that. And that's about all I can do there. I may remove this leaf also. It's getting quite large. I might as well. Although, this leaf is a good horizontal one. Maybe I'll remove this vertical one instead. Kind of, so all these branches get good light. Now I'm going to check in the apex. I have some 3 buds at this level, but I'm not sure if the top of it's alive. I'm going to scratch that. No, it's not. So I can take the top off. I'll leave a bit of a stump to there. Yeah, there's no sap flow there at all. I'll show you a close-up of that. There's a look at the top of that apex where I cut it, and you can see there's no white latex sap. There's no green color. It's just a dead branch right there. So lots of shoots coming out around it. So it looks like from the cold treatment, having it in the basement, I lost my branch tips, but the overall tree is still alive and doing well. So overall, I've learned that Ficus lyrata cannot take the cold, that it's better to keep them warm and tropical for the entire winter. The next tree I'll be working on is my Ficus benghalensis, or banyan tree. I was going to make this a fairly large tree, and I've been thinking about that decision, that I'm not gaining any space in my greenhouses or my plant room, and all my trees are getting big. And I'm thinking, do I want to grow this into a giant bonsai? Because, you know, if this is my lowest branch, the whole tree would be massive. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I want to do like the Indian rubber trees and keep them small. Maybe, you know, do another trunk chop on it and keep it, you know, maybe a small to medium-sized bonsai. Trying to reduce the leaves. It's a possibility. I've been thinking about it. While I'm thinking about the top of the tree, I am going to prune the roots, getting rid of all these long roots coming out the bottom drainage holes. So a year ago, I put this in this root maker pot, which has all these ridges and ribs in the inside, that the whole pot is designed to generate roots, to fill this pot with roots. And you can see some escape roots here coming out of the holes in the bottom of the pot here. Each one of these little levels has holes around here. I can show you once I get these roots pruned. Yeah, so very aggressive root systems on these banyan trees. They drop aerial roots like crazy. Okay, so now I can show you the bottom of this pot. So here's a look. You can see all the drainage holes here, and the inside of the pot has ribs, and the ribs on the inside of the pot stop the roots circling around in the pot. So the roots hit the edge of the pot, they start growing around the pot, hit the rib, and then they either have to grow straight up or straight down, or out a drainage hole or somewhere. So it stops you getting rings and rings of roots in the bottom of these pots. I find root maker pots are really good to develop a nice fibrous root system, getting all those fine roots. But throwing a tree in a root maker pot doesn't give you a nice, beautiful, balanced radial root base. That all has to be done with pruning. This is just a superior nursery pot to the cheap cylindrical ones that you can that are commonly found in nurseries. It creates a better root system than just a regular pot. I'm back thinking about how tall this tree is and how much space it's taking up. I think if I leave it this height, it's going to develop into a giant bonsai, and I would love to have a giant bonsai like that of this Ficus benghalensis with all the aerial roots and that. But I don't think that's practical. I think I had big dreams and small rooms, small greenhouses, small rooms. I think my dreams were bigger than the space I have. So I think I've got to chop this back and, maybe this height here, develop branches, aerial roots off the branches, and kind of create a lower spreading banyan style tree. I think that would look good. A lot of banyan trees have their branches where they come off the trunk very low, so they have a short trunk and then all these reaching branches. And I think that'd be a better style than trying to create a big thick trunk and have the branches way up here and create a giant bonsai. I just don't have the space for it. So let's do it. Let's do a big trunk chop today, getting this back down to size and develop it as a small to medium sized bonsai. Up top on the tree, you can see I did my chop here, and I think I sealed it with rubber cement, or maybe it was just a latex sap that sealed it. But I got branches coming right from the cut point and all below it. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and another one developing. Yeah, there's a lot of branches around the cut point. So if I were to cut it off here, I would probably get all kinds of branches come out at that point, which would be quite nice to get this low spreading tree. I think that would be cool. So let's do it. All right, I've got my bypass pruner out. How low do I go? Where do I want branches to come out? Here? That'd be a pretty good height. So maybe prune it just a little higher. There's a lot of leaf scars coming from here, so probably, I'll probably get shoots from the base of each one of these leaf scars. I'm thinking somewhere here. I think if I go up here, it's too high. It's hard to imagine because this trunk is going to, increase in diameter. Maybe at the end of this coming year, it'll be twice the size, and then the next year it'll be twice the size again, maybe. So it'll be a pretty beefy trunk. If I go higher, maybe. Tough decision. Tough decision. Man. I'm still leaning to somewhere about here. Here I go. Big cut coming up. Just like that. Now, this will definitely root as a cutting. I'll take the lower leaves off. And it's starting to leak that sap, so I'm going to seal the top with the sap. And I'll plant this as a cutting. So there is a shot of my Ficus benghalensis, my banyan tree for spring of 2023. I'd sort of call that a stick, but it has good roots now, has some bark forming, and it'll get some nice branches on it. It'd be very interesting to develop this tree. I found a good pot for my cutting, kind of a suitable size one. I can stick the cutting in, planting it down to about there, fill it up with soil, and it should root and grow. It's not a root maker pot, but I think it'll do quite well. I have filled the pot full of soil, so now I will insert the cutting here, kind of wiggling it as I go, getting it fairly deep like that. That looks good. I'm not going to water it out here in the greenhouse because my water out here is fairly cool. I'm going to wait till I bring it inside to the plant room where I've got the warm water, and I'll give it a water in there. So that is all done. My Ficus benghalensis. I've gone from one tall tree to 2 shorter trees. And I've also gone up 1 tree in number, which is never good. So I'll probably end up giving this away once it starts growing, or the other possibility is I'll keep this one and give this one away. But I think this is the more mature one, has a better root system at the moment. So, but this one has branches up top, so maybe I'll end up keeping both of them. Who knows? I'm keeping an eye on the weather outside. The wind is definitely picking up. It's blowing quite strongly. The tops of the trees are swaying in the wind. No snow yet, but I'm sure it's on its way. I'll begin work now on the last trees for today, my Ficus elastica or Indian rubber trees. Here is a look at the trees. You can see they're looking really, really good. Nice healthy growth on them. A scale insect on it. Got that off. That's the only one I've seen so far. Yeah, so I think my next step with these trees, I think I want to defoliate them. You can see they have lots of vigor. You can see the growth, the inner nodes is starting off really small and it's getting larger and larger as it gains strength and vigor. So even though it's in a small pot, it's still gaining too much vigor. The leaf size is going up too large. So I'm going to defoliate the tree, prune it back today, zapping some of that vigor out of the tree, and then I'll let it grow in once again. All right, here I go on the defoliation. Cutting every leaf off, the big ones, the small ones, everything. I can see they need watering, but I'll have to wait till I get inside and use that nice warm water. So at the base of each leaf is a bud, a dormant bud. And sometimes just defoliating like this can activate those buds to grow into branches. Even without pruning, it can cause an increase in branches. So some people just, regularly defoliate their trees every summer to kind of increase the branch density on the trees. You have to be careful doing that. You've always have to make sure that there's enough vigor in the tree for it to recover from defoliation. If you defoliate a weak tree, more than likely it's just going to die. So instead of making the tree look better, you end up with a dead tree. So make sure your tree is healthy, vigorous, and has lots of strength and good growing conditions after the defoliation, and you should be fine. But again, any operation you do to your trees, there's always a risk. Okay. Oh, missed one. There. All right, the tree is defoliated. Wow, it looks good too. Considering, this was straight from, a nursery, if you call it a nursery, a year ago. And now it's starting to develop branches and a woody trunk, and yeah, it's coming along nicely as a bonsai. Just cleaning up some of these older leaves in the soil here that are falling down. Okay, so the next step is to prune the tree up. All right, I'm ready to begin. You can see the size of the tree. Here's my finger. Here's the height of my hand. Very small. So I've got a good apex going on this number one tree. I pruned it here before. It didn't subdivide. It got a new shoot out to the left here. Nothing to the right, but there is a bud there at the base of this leaf that I cut off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this shoot back. That'll do two things. It'll zap the vigor out of this shoot, and it'll probably equalize the balance, so this one will start growing. So I'll be dividing from one into two up here. So I will definitely prune this one back. Here I go, like that. I also want to clean up my cut point here. So I'm going to nibble that away a bit. Like that. I think that's good. All these leaf petioles, what's left of them, they'll dry up very quickly and fall off, so I don't need to clean those up. So that's got the apex taken care of. I have my previous pruning point here. I could clean that up a bit. Kind of, just taking it back a bit. So I get a smoother transition there. I think that's good. I don't think I want to prune these lower branches because you can see how thick the apex is. I want these to catch up. So I'll let those grow. The one at the back is getting kind of tall. This one in the middle, you can see there's buds here, and on the other side over here is a bud. So I could definitely prune the top off, and that would activate those two buds, or just prune it back and maybe I'll get the best of both worlds. I'll get all three growing here. So I'll prune the top back here like that. And then I'll just clean up my stub back here. There, making a smoother transition And I think that's all I can do for the main tree. I think that's all pruned up, ready to grow. So next I want to look at this my smallest tree here. I can prune this stub up here and kind of clean that up. Previous pruning stub. I can definitely prune it back in height. I've got a leaf here and a leaf here. Now this internode here is getting quite large, so I'm going to have to come back to here, like that. I've got a new branch growing from the base of this tree here, and I'm not really keen on that branch because it's kind of, I've already got my trunk line coming up and it's already the smallest trunk line. I don't think I want like a fourth kind of trunk line coming up the tree, so I'm going to take that right off. Great to have choices of new branches, but it's just not growing in the right spot. I'm also going to clean up around the back here. You can see my previous pruning stub. I'll clean that up like that. On the tree beside it, I have a pruning stub here. I'll clean that up also like that. Make a nicer transition point. So now I've got to prune up my other tree, so let me just come back to the front view here. Sort of here. And I want to prune up that tree. So it doesn't have any branches yet. It has a single trunk line that comes all the way up to here. So I need to start pruning it back, getting more branches. So I think this is getting quite tall here. I'm going to prune the apex back to there. And that's about all I can do. I can clean up another stub back here. I'll do that. Like that. And I think that's all I can do with this miniature planting. And I think this was the front here. Yeah, I think somewhere here was the front. Now that could change, you know, I could have it like this. Largest tree, second largest, and the smaller one in the background. Yeah, it could change. It's in a round pot, so I can choose the front however I like. So this tree definitely needs watering, and probably, maybe even this summer, I'll repot it, and in the same pot, but just root pruning. I noticed that here I've got a fairly thick root, so I can, always trying for that, you know, nice balanced radial root system. So my Ficus elasticas are pruned up and ready to grow. Here is a look at all the trees I worked on today on this Ficus Friday. It'll be interesting to see them 1 year from now to see how they've progressed. It's still windy outside, but there's no sign of a snowstorm yet. I'll keep my camera on the ready and I'll film the snowstorm if it happens tonight, and you'll see it on tomorrow's video. But that's all for this Ficus Friday. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.